You often feel a little or even a lot run over in your closest relationships. Like there's not really any space for you and for what you want or for what you need or for what you prefer. And it seems to always be centered around them and what they want or what they need. And you might even feel a little bit suffocated, but you're afraid to speak up. You're afraid to insert yourself in the relationship and speak up for what you want, need, think, or feel, because if it goes against them and what they want or what they think you should want, then you're afraid that they are going to be upset and either abandon or reject you. You think that it's your job to make other people happy, to do what they want, because there will be a consequence if you don't, that who you are isn't valuable enough in and of itself, in and of yourself, to be loved and cherished and accepted, that your value only comes from what you do for others and making them happy and meeting their needs. If this sounds like you, then there's a good chance that you are struggling with a behavior pattern called codependency. And now we're going to talk more about what codependency is, and we're going to look for some subtle signs that you are likely struggling with codependency, and then we're going to talk about what to do from there. But essentially, codependency is really about being dependent, being codependent on somebody else for your sense of self, for who you are. It can be one person, like a partner or a parent, even if you're an adult or a sibling or just someone that you are really close to, or it can be sort of a behavior pattern that shows up in all your relationships where you don't really feel like you have space for yourself, for your wants, for your needs, for your preferences in any of your relationships, professional or personal. And so you kind of feel like this shell of yourself. You often feel confused or maybe empty, or you don't even really know who you are. And that's what codependency is. It's when we rely too much on others for our sense of self, for our emotional well-being, for our emotional support. Not to say that we shouldn't be relying on others for emotional support, but codependency is relying too much, where we rely on others too much for our validation and even our identity. Codependency often involves putting the needs and desires, preferences, or even problems of others above our own, where it can often result in that self-abandonment. And if you can imagine what abandonment is, feeling empty, feeling lost, feeling alone, codependency is when we do that to ourselves to, in a way, prevent other people from abandoning us. It can be subtle. It can be sneaky, and you may not even realize that it's happening, that these are patterns that you have learned, that you have developed, probably for some reason, and maybe it was a good reason originally, but now it has turned into a problem. And you might not even realize that it's happening until you start breaking those patterns and breaking those cycles and realizing how much happier and at peace and fulfilled and whole you feel. So we're first going to talk about subtle ways they show up and then what we can do to start breaking these patterns. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second to introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, always good to have you. Special shout out to my shifters. My name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, coach, a speaker, and an author, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking this work to the next level, and you're being guided and supported the whole way through. You can get more info about that in the description below. I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, and show up better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And let's jump right into these subtle signs. The first one is you have difficulty saying no. Do you ever notice yourself really having a hard time saying no, even if you really don't have the time or the energy or the capacity or the desire for a request that comes your way, you really, really struggle to say no, and you will push extra, and you will take on extra, and you will stress yourself out, and you will overwhelm yourself, and you will even do things you really don't want to do just to avoid maybe disappointing someone, maybe letting someone down, even if it's just a little bit, that you find that idea of someone being displeased with you, even in the most small way, too much to bear. And so you don't say no. So if you find that no is a 2-letter word that you choke on and can't get out of your mouth, then chances are you are struggling with codependence. The next one, you find yourself seeking a lot of validation from others. Like you're looking to others to assess and evaluate whether or not you are good enough, smart enough, competent enough, capable enough, interesting enough, attractive enough. And it almost never feels like you can get enough of that validation. Like you are searching for it, seeking it, fishing for it, trying to do things just to get those words from someone else. And if you don't get them, then you start to feel anxious, and you might even start to really doubt yourself and wonder if any of these things are even at all true, if you're not getting a lot of that feedback or that validation from others. And then the third one, you have a really hard time making decisions. It can be small decisions like which flavor of latte you want to get when you're on your next coffee run, or which item on the menu you should order when you're out for dinner with friends, which thing is going to be the perfect thing that's going to fulfill all of your culinary taste buds and desires in that moment. And you pine over the menu for what feels like a long time, and you finally make a decision and you place your order, and then a few minutes later you might even find yourself going after the server and saying, hey, I want to get this instead. Where you really struggle to make decisions and are often asking people for what they think you should do. Not that way of like crowdsourcing and getting different perspectives to help you kind of figure out some different ways of looking at something before you make a decision, where you're like, oh, like, what do you think I should do? It's more like, what do you think I should do? Where you're giving that decision to someone else because you don't want to deal with either making the quote unquote wrong decision and failing and worrying about what that's going to mean about you when you already have that more kind of fragile self-esteem, that teetering sense of self that we talked about before, about not really trusting yourself or feeling good about yourself. So you worry that if you make the wrong decision, it's going to mean that you are a failure, that you are maybe not good enough and you don't know what you're doing and you can't trust yourself. Or you fear that if you make a decision that upsets someone even slightly, or that someone doesn't like, that you are a terrible person for doing that. And so you might even find yourself deferring your decisions to others and getting them to tell you what to do. Which then goes along nicely with our next one, is that you struggle a lot with second guessing yourself. That even when you do finally make a decision, you second guess it, you question it, you overthink it. You're really worried about doing the wrong thing. You're worried about it having potentially any kind of negative impact on someone else, or someone disagreeing with your decision. And if someone does disagree with your decision, you automatically think that you are making the wrong decision. Even if, when it comes to decisions for yourself and your life that really bear no impact on the other person, if they just happen to have a different opinion, you see their opinion as superior to your desire or your preference or your need or what you want, and think that you are making the wrong decision, and then even change your decision to what they think, even though that might not even be what you want or what is best for you. But second guessing yourself plagues you. It takes up a lot of your mental and emotional strength. You overthink things and doubt yourself a lot. And then our next one, which goes along on a similar theme, but this one is really subtle. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. But this one is that you think that pretty much everything is your fault. If something goes wrong that was maybe even a group effort, you think it's because of something you did. When someone is upset, you think that it's automatically all because of you. When there's any kind of discord or disagreement or tension in a relationship, that the responsibility is yours. It's because you have failed, because you are wrong, because maybe even you are bad in some way. If your partner or your best friend or even your coworker is a little more quiet than usual, seems a bit withdrawn, then you automatically assume that it's because of something you did, because they're mad at you and it's your fault. You take on the weight of everybody else's well-being. And if everyone is not always well in their being, then it's because of you, because something you did or didn't do. And it feels like a lot. All of these things that come out of codependency feel like a lot. They're weighing you down. They're making you feel stuck or trapped or resentful. A lot of these are really subtle, but they can have a significant impact on the quality and health of your relationships and also your own mental health and well-being. Once you start to recognize these patterns, we can start doing something about them. And to help you along the way with that, I have a free download for you. It's the 6 tips to start freeing yourself from codependency. Totally free. The link is in the description below, and that's going to walk you through what other kind of patterns of codependency look like in relationships, and then what healthy interdependent relationships look like. So we're going to look at the codependent side, and then we're going to look at the healthy interdependent side with the same kind of issues, so you can see what it looks like to be breaking out of that, and then give you some really helpful tips to get you going. Get that? It's free, and the link is in the description. And now I want to hear from you. What connected with you? Which one of these are you like, oh wow, I totally struggle with that. I didn't realize that that was an indication that there was something bigger going on, that there was some codependency happening there. Maybe there's a lot of codependency, maybe a little bit, but either way, identifying them, addressing them, and working through them is going to make a big difference for you and for your happiness and your well-being and your relationships. It is always good to have you here. Make sure you grab that free download of the 6 tips to start freeing yourself from codependent patterns. And please take good care of yourself and take good care of those around you. Bye for now.